Lagina stood motionless beside the swamp. The icy Atlantic wind swept across the island, whispering through the trees like the ghosts of those who had searched before him. Beneath his boots, centuries of secrets lay buried, tunnels, traps, and chambers that had swallowed fortunes and lives in equal measure. For more than 200 years, the world had wondered what truly rested beneath Oak Island, the legendary money pit. Pirate gold? Royal treasure? Ancient relics? Theories had come and gone like the tides, but no one had ever uncovered the truth. Until now. After months of drilling and scanning, Rick's team picked up something different, a formation that didn't match anything seen before. A sealed chamber almost 180 feet deep beneath the swamp. The sonar images showed clear, deliberate geometry. Walls, corners, and metallic echoes that reflected in ways no natural rock ever could. It wasn't chaos, it was design. Rick stared at the data, heart pounding. This was the moment he had spent his entire life chasing, the moment when theory crossed into history. When the borehole camera finally descended into the darkness, the team watched in silence. And then, there it was. A smooth stone surface carved by human hands, and on it, a symbol. A cross. Not just any cross, the cross patay, the unmistakable emblem of the Knights Templar. Rick's breath caught. If this was real, it meant Oak Island wasn't just a treasure site, it was a Templar vault. The team proceeded with extreme caution. One wrong move could collapse the entire structure. Using micro-drilling, they extracted fragments from the stone slab sealing the chamber. Carbon dating stunned everyone. The material dated back to the 13th or 14th century, long before any known European settlement in Nova Scotia. Whoever had built this had done so with astonishing skill. The limestone was reinforced by layers of marine clay, a preservation method only known to medieval engineers who specialized in building structures meant to last for ages. When the slab was cleaned, faint engravings began to appear. A lattice of lines and patterns, nearly invisible beneath mineral deposits, formed a familiar design. The same sacred geometry found in Rosslyn Chapel, Scotland,
a place long linked to Templar legend. Rick called out to his brother Marty, his voice trembling with disbelief. "This isn't coincidence," Rick whispered. "It's the same symbol carved into Rosslyn Chapel's pillars." The evidence was undeniable. The connection between Oak Island and the Templars, once dismissed as fantasy, was now written in stone, 180 feet underground. Weeks passed, and the Oak Island dig gained momentum. Among the historical archives, the team uncovered a fragile French map, dated 1701, titled L'Île de l'Or Perdu, the Island of Lost Gold. The shape of the island matched Oak Island almost perfectly. But it wasn't the outline that startled Rick and Marty. It was the margin notes. Written in Old French and Latin, the cartographer had scribbled, "The coffers of the temple entombed beneath layers of engineered stone." Handwriting analysis revealed the author had known ties to the Templar order. The map lined up precisely with the chamber Rick's team had uncovered beneath the swamp. It was no coincidence. Even more intriguing, the map referenced a ship, La Rochelle's Ghost, said to have disappeared during the Templar Purge of 1307. Could this lost fleet have crossed the Atlantic, carrying the Order's most sacred relics? Back on Oak Island, excavation continued with extreme care. A brass chain was discovered embedded in the limestone, each link etched with Templar crosses. Metallurgical testing confirmed it matched a unique medieval alloy of brass and silver, used exclusively by Templar craftsmen. Nearby, a small lead container, sealed with wax and resin, was unearthed. Inside lay a fragile parchment, surprisingly legible after centuries underwater. The words, written in medieval French, sent chills through the room. "The great ark rests beneath the rose. Seek not the gold, but the truth it guards." Experts immediately recognized these as Templar code phrases. The Great Ark likely referred to sacred relics, perhaps even the Ark of the Covenant. Beneath the rose, a phrase meaning secrecy, sub rosa. The parchment was signed by a Templar scribe, dated just before the Order's destruction in 1307. Every artifact, the chain, the carvings, the parchment, pointed to one conclusion. The Templars reached the New World centuries before.
Recorded history. Rick's team realized the implications were staggering. The swamp vault wasn't just a hiding place, it was a defensive masterpiece. Every tunnel, shaft, and flood trap across Oak Island was part of a single security system designed to protect its contents from intruders. Rick called it the Guardian Mechanism. Even now, centuries later, it remained active. Standing before the limestone gate, Rick traced the carvings of the rose with his fingertips. "If this is the lesser vault," he whispered, "then what did they hide in the greater one?" The question hung in the misty air, heavy with centuries of unanswered secrets. Weeks later, the Oak Island team expanded their search beyond the swamp, guided by the coordinates from the limestone tablet. Oceanographers plotted the points in the North Atlantic, near a cluster of small rocky islets barely explored. Satellite images revealed strange, unnatural straight lines cutting across the terrain, possible buried foundations. Could this be the location of the greater vault the Templars had hinted at? The phrase on the tablet, hic est arca minor, arcum ultra est. Here is the lesser vault, the greater one lies beyond, left no doubt. When the divers finally reached the coordinates, the ocean was shrouded in thick fog. The submersible camera descended slowly into the murky depths, following the sonar scans that indicated a rectangular void with dense metallic reflections. Suddenly, the camera's light revealed a wall, smooth stone carved by human hands, adorned with a faint rose cross identical to the symbol found on Oak Island. The divers followed the wall to a flat slab that sealed an entrance buried under centuries of silt and coral. Etched above it were 3 Latin words, sub mare veritas, truth beneath the sea. Rick's voice barely rose above a whisper. "It's them, the same builders." With extreme care, the divers began clearing the upper stones. Slowly, the passage opened into a circular chamber lined with limestone blocks fitted with impossible precision. Brass fixtures glimmered faintly under the underwater lights, uncorroded after centuries. At the center stood a raised platform flanked by 4 stone pillars, each holding a sealed metal box engraved with the rose cross. Remote instruments measured pressure and density. The contents were metallic but layered and light, suggesting plates or sheets rather than solid gold. The carvings on the walls told stories through symbols and geometry. Fleets of ships sailing under stars, men carrying crosses into mountains, and islands marked with roses. It was a message, preserved in stone, recounting a journey from Europe to the New World. After hours of scanning and documenting the chamber, the team decided to carefully retrieve one of the sealed boxes. Using robotic arms, they brought it to the surface inside a pressure-controlled container. The anticipation was electric. Once opened under secure lab conditions, the box revealed layers of decayed silk protecting thin golden plates, each etched with intricate text. The language was unfamiliar, a mix of Latin and ancient Greek, written in flowing, precise script. Translating the first few lines stunned the scholars. The plates spoke of a brotherhood of the sea, guardians of the light of knowledge carried from the Temple of Solomon. The text described how, after the Templar Order's destruction in Europe, a select group sailed west to safeguard what they called the wisdom of the Ark. They had created 2 sanctuaries, one for the material treasure, the other for written knowledge. Oak Island housed the Lesser Vault, while the newly discovered underwater site was the Greater Vault, a library of sacred knowledge preserved across centuries. The team realized the true purpose of these structures. The Templars had not sought wealth. They had sought to protect knowledge from those who would misuse it. Among the artifacts, the centerpiece was a large crystal sphere mounted on bronze arms, a kind of celestial globe far more advanced than anything known in the 14th century.
Its surface reflected the diver's lights in brilliant colors, revealing a navigational tool that mapped not only coastlines, but also the stars, mirroring constellations and celestial cycles tied to Templar symbols across Europe. Scrolls sealed in wax, silver plates etched with geometric diagrams, and small gold vessels adorned with the Rose Cross were arranged with deliberate precision. This was not treasure for riches, but a carefully preserved archive of knowledge, a map of faith, science, and navigation encoded in objects meant to survive centuries.
News of the discovery spread worldwide. Scholars debated its implications, historians were awestruck, and media outlets called it one of the greatest archaeological finds of the century. For Rick Lagina, the significance went beyond fame or fortune. Standing on the deck under the stars, he reflected on the centuries of secrecy, sacrifice, and protection. The Templars' message was clear. The vaults were not built for greed, but to safeguard knowledge and faith until the world was ready to understand it. As the final surveys confirmed another chamber beyond the main circular room, containing a massive chest inscribed with Arca Magni Veritatis, the Great Ark of Truth, the team knew the mission was far from over. The chest was too delicate to move immediately, but even without opening it fully, its presence proved the Templars had built a network to protect not just treasures, but wisdom itself. For Rick and his team, the Oak Island mystery had transformed. It was no longer about chasing gold. It was about understanding a hidden chapter of human history, one preserved beneath the sea, waiting for those who were ready to listen.
The following weeks became a blur of controlled chaos and quiet awe. Experts from around the world, linguists, archaeologists, and historians descended on the small island and its surrounding waters. What had once been a decades-long treasure hunt now evolved into something far more profound, a rewriting of history itself. The sealed chamber, mapped and stabilized, revealed deeper corridors extending beneath the seabed. These tunnels appeared to connect to older geological layers, suggesting that the vault had been deliberately constructed using both natural caverns and precise engineering. Every inch of the structure reflected intelligence far ahead of its time. Inside one of the side passages, divers discovered more sealed urns made of hammered silver, their surfaces inscribed with spirals and intersecting circles. When carefully opened under lab conditions, each urn contained tiny crystal vials filled with fine dust and fragments of parchment. Under microscopic analysis, these proved to contain early ink compounds and organic material dating back to the 1300s. This meant one thing: the artifacts were authentic and had survived untouched for nearly 7 centuries. As the analysis continued, another mystery unfolded. The strange golden plates, once thought to be purely decorative, were found to emit a faint magnetic field. Scientists theorized that they had been layered with a mineral compound containing lodestone, a naturally magnetic material known in medieval times for its navigational properties. This discovery hinted that the Templars may have used magnetism not just as a tool for travel, but as a symbolic connection between heaven and earth, aligning their artifacts with both geography and astronomy. Rick Lagina, usually the calm anchor of the operation, found himself deeply moved. Standing beside the recovered items in the temporary lab set up on the island, he couldn't help but think of all the years of digging, drilling, and doubt. For decades, skeptics had mocked Oak Island as a fool's errand, a pit of legends and lost fortunes. But now, before his eyes, lay evidence that the Templars had indeed crossed the Atlantic centuries before Columbus, carrying not only their faith, but their knowledge and purpose. When the linguists released their first partial translation
of the texts found on the golden plates, the world was stunned. The writings described the Light of Solomon, a term believed to refer to sacred wisdom derived from the ancient temple in Jerusalem. It spoke of the duty to preserve truth through symbols, geometry, and sacred alignment, concepts that mirrored both Templar architecture and early Renaissance science. One line, written in precise Latin, read, "What is bound above must be reflected below, for truth is one in both heaven and earth." This single sentence ignited debates among historians and theologians alike. It hinted that the Templars may have preserved fragments of pre-Christian philosophy combined with early scientific thought. To many, it suggested that the order's true mission was not merely to defend pilgrims or amass wealth, but to safeguard the convergence of faith and knowledge, what some scholars called the divine geometry of creation. As more chambers were mapped, the team discovered that the vault's layout itself formed a cross-like pattern when viewed from above. Each arm of the cross pointed toward a significant celestial coordinate, one toward Polaris, another toward the rising sun during the spring equinox, a third toward the constellation Orion, and the fourth toward a point deep in the Atlantic. This alignment was too precise to be coincidence. The vault had been built as both a physical and spiritual compass. Meanwhile, the discovery of the crystal sphere caused a sensation in the scientific community. The artifact's craftsmanship was so advanced that even modern metallurgists struggled to replicate it. The bronze arms that held the orb were engraved with constellations, but not as they appeared today. They were mapped as they would have looked nearly 700 years ago, suggesting the makers had deep astronomical knowledge. When laser light was passed through the sphere, it refracted into patterns resembling latitude and longitude lines, an ancient projection of both the Earth and the heavens. The global fascination grew. Documentaries were commissioned, and universities offered to assist with preservation. But for Rick Lagina, the discovery remained deeply personal.
Returned to the excavation site at dusk, watching the fading sunlight reflect off the calm Atlantic. He knew that the treasure he and his brother had spent years seeking was not measured in ounces of gold, but in revelations that bridged worlds, past and present, myth and fact, faith and reason. Then came the next revelation. A digital scan revealed an inscription on the outer wall of the deepest chamber. It was faint, but readable. Custodes Arcanae Veritatis, guardians of the secret truth. Beneath it, a symbol matching the Templar cross intertwined with a compass rose confirmed that this vault had indeed been constructed by a maritime order connected to the original Knights Templar. The next challenge was accessing the final chamber, the one housing the massive chest known as Arca Magni Veritatis, the Great Ark of Truth. The chest was encased in layers of hardened sediment, almost as if time itself had sealed it for protection. Removing it risked collapse, so the team decided to preserve the chamber as it was while using fiber optic cameras to examine the interior. What they saw left them speechless. Inside the chest lay a set of scrolls bound in thin sheets of beaten gold, alongside stone tablets etched with what appeared to be early star charts. The scrolls were inscribed with alternating Latin and Greek passages, referencing the light from the east carried by the builders of wisdom. Some symbols were traced to Phoenician roots, others to Hebrew mystical traditions. It was as if the Templars had gathered fragments of every sacred language they encountered and fused them into a single coded record of human understanding. The implications were staggering. If authenticated, this find would prove that the Templars not only traveled across the Atlantic, but also established a transoceanic repository of spiritual and scientific knowledge long before modern exploration began. It would mean the legends of a new Jerusalem built in the West were not mere myth. They were part of a grand design to protect humanity's intellectual